Hello and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. My name is Shanae and this is Cozy in the Pines. Today we are going to be talking about all the books that I read in February. I'm super excited to be making this video. This is kind of my first book video. I think I've only ever made one other book video and never did it again, but I am very excited. So let's get into this video. Now, I read a decent amount of books. I read 7. Some of them were physical, some of them were on my Kindle, and I DNF'd one book, and I figured why not put that in the video too, so that will be on here as well. Now, these are not in any specific order. These are just kind of in the order that I grabbed them, but I did read The Let Them Theory, and I absolutely loved this book. If you guys saw it on Instagram, I honestly couldn't stop talking about it, and I don't think I've ever tagged a book this much. This book changed my life. It is a nonfiction, so of course, if you're not ready for what this book is trying to tell you, show you, teach you, you probably won't like it, but I think this book is so great and everybody needs to read, every adult needs to read it. This book is by Mel Robbins. She also has a podcast that you guys can listen to. It's really great. I listen to her podcast as well, but when she announced that she was going to be writing the Let Them Theory book, I had to have it. I'm a little bummed. It was released on December 24th, but my copy did not show up until I think mid-January. It showed up with my Onyx Storm, which showed up on time. This book is a nonfiction book that teaches you how to not let other people's opinions and judgments affect you, which key phrase, let them. And also just tips and tricks on how to change your life. And it says the Let Them Theory is a proven method that teaches you how to protect your time and energy and focus on what matters to you. This book, I'm telling you, has changed my life, and I have highlighted so much. Like, you guys probably won't be able to see because it's a pretty light highlighter that I used, but I absolutely loved this book. I think everybody needs to read it. Read the synopsis online, figure out if you think it's for you. And I think the most moving thing, well, the whole book is moving, don't get me wrong, but when she said that you mentioned that adult behavior is basically child behavior but in an adult's body, and it just, that right there blew my mind, because I'm like, oh, you're right, so many adults act like children and it's just their behavior. The other thing about this book is you have to remember when you read it, it's let them but also let me. So it's teaching you about how to handle your relationship with others and other people, but also how to handle the relationship with yourself. And she says in here, if you only do let them and not let me, you're going to be very lonely, because the Let Them Theory could isolate you to where you feel very lonely. So it's a let them, but it's also a let me, which I think is why this book is so moving and everybody should read it. If I could gift this to everybody, I would. I gifted it to one of my best friends. She said that she was going to read it, and I was like, when? And she said probably not soon. She had to get it from the library, and I was like, put it on your wish list. I'll gift it to you. Are you back? Did you come back? So that was the only nonfiction book that I read. The next one is Lights Out, and oh my god, this book was 5 stars for me. I flew through it. I think I read it, no, I read the Let Them Theory in 48 hours. This one took me longer. But this book, absolutely loved it. This book is written in Josh's POV and Allie's. Allie is a trauma nurse, and she has this obsession with this masked man on, I think it's on Instagram in this book, but she's obsessed with this guy and she fantasizes about him. She ends up sending a drunken text to one of her ex hookup people, and the story unfolds from there. I don't want to say too much, but I'm pretty sure there's trigger warnings in this book. It's not that dark, but it's not, yes, okay, there is trigger warnings. So some stuff can be pretty dark, so read the trigger warnings. But if you can make it through the trigger warnings and you like dark romance, this book is for you. I absolutely love this book. The second one's coming out sometime this year, and I cannot wait to pick it up. The next book is Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams. I don't think I told you guys who wrote Lights Out, but it was on the screen. This book, I did not like it. I don't know why I kept going. I thought it was, compared to Lights Out, this book is so vanilla. But which is okay. I don't need that. I don't need the dark romance in every book, but it definitely made it more fun. This book is the third in a trilogy, but I read it as a standalone, which I don't think that affected it too much. The other characters in the other books are in this, but I think when you read or look at the other books that Sarah Adams wrote, you kind of already know who's paired together. You just don't have their story, or you might get bits and pieces of the story. But I didn't think that it was necessary to read the other ones before reading this one. I understood the characters fine. In this book, we follow Emily and Jack. They are both two teachers at a school. Jack moved away and was going to marry his fiance. I don't remember where they moved, but they moved out of state. And Emily never liked Jack. Emily was always out to get Jack. They were always fighting. This is kind of like a little bit of like a enemies to lovers. And little does she know that he ends up buying the house next to her. And then she goes through this whole thing of trying to just sabotage him, to get him to move away, to not move into that house. There were certain aspects of this book that were cute, but unfortunately for me, maybe it was coming off the high of Lights Out. I read this book a couple books after, but it was just a little too slow and vanilla for me. This is, I guess Sarah Adams is not known to write those kind of books. I did not know that. I kind of went into this blind, and I liked it because it was pink and I read it in February, but this book just wasn't for me. I think I only gave it like 2 stars. And of course, as always, Bones is here. Come here. You want to say hi? Come here. Come on. I don't know if you guys know this, if you're new here, but he is in almost every single sit down type video. He always finds his way here. So this is Bones. Huh, you always gotta be in the videos. Okay, you can sit here. So the last physical book, okay, he was sitting on my lap, but he just jumped off. The last physical book I read was Air of Fire, which is book 3, I think, in the Throne of Glass series. There's not much I can say about this book, only because it's the 3rd in the series. And if I say too much, it might ruin something. It's hard for me to remember what specific events happen in just the certain book. So I can't say much, but I will say this book, this whole series, it's kind of hard for me to get through, but I have to remember that this was her first series, and it's also written in YA. There are certain aspects that I absolutely loved, but most of this book, I don't even remember how long it was. Let's see. This book was 565 pages, and I truly only enjoyed maybe the last 150, but it wasn't bad enough for me to DNF it. It's too slow for me, and it's not the Sarah J. Maas that I am used to, but I am still chugging along. I have the whole series over there. I think I'm going to throw Assassin's Blade in next. I know you can read that kind of wherever, but I was told to make sure that I read Assassin's Blade before picking up the 4th book, which is Queen of Shadows, I believe. So I'll be reading Assassin's Blade's next. But I did read Air of Fire in February. The next book that I read was Swift and Saddled, and that might also be why I didn't like Beg, Borrow, Steal, because I read Swift and Saddled and Lights Out before it. And I absolutely loved Swift and Saddled. We follow Ada and Weston Ryder in this book. This is the 2nd book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I read the first one, and I did not like their story. Luke, every time he would say sugar, oh gosh, I cannot hear that word anymore. That word just, I didn't like it. But the 2nd book I absolutely loved, and I think it's probably because I find a lot of like similarities between me and Ada. But Ada is a city girl. She's an interior designer, and she ends up getting hired to remodel I think the house that the Weston brothers all grew up in. She gets hired to remodel that so that they can have like kind of like an Airbnb thing. When she arrives in town, she is starving, so the only thing that's open according to Google is the bar that Luke owns. So she ends up in the bar and she locks eyes with Wes, and his dog comes over. It's the cutest thing, but it's their story. And again, I apologize. I will get better at these videos. I'm just so scared that I'm going to say something that's going to be like a spoiler. So if you see some hesitation, that's why. But I loved their story. I thought it was the cutest thing in the world, and I'm very excited to read the next one. It's actually on my shelf right now, and I think the fourth and final comes out sometime this year. I want to say in the next couple months it comes out, but I'm so excited to read that. I didn't think cowboy romances were my thing, but apparently they are. The next book that I read on my Kindle was Crashed by Frida McFadden, and if you read any of her books before, you know how just quick and easy kind of psychological thrillers that they are. I've read the Housemaid series, and I've read 2 of her other ones. All I can remember is Never Lie, and I can't remember the other one. Never Lie was not my favorite. This one I did like. There were certain aspects that were kind of slow, but it was just, the thing with Frida's books is that they are just such realistic situations that you're like, oh my god, yeah, that really could happen. So I think they just mess with you in that way. But in this one, I cannot remember her name for the life of me right now. But in this book, we follow the main character. She is 8 months pregnant, and she got pregnant off of a one-night stand. And she is driving in a snowstorm. This book also takes place in a snowstorm, which I thought was perfect to read in February because it's the last month of, kind of winter around here. But she ends up driving to go see her brother in the middle of a snowstorm while being 8 months pregnant. She stops off and I think she goes to like a corner store because she's hungry, and she knows that she shouldn't, but she does it anyways. And the snowstorm is so bad that she loses cell phone service, and she veers off onto this other road that does not take her back to the highway. So, and that's where her story begins. She ends up crashing her car, hint the name. She ends up crashing her car, and that's when her story takes off by the people who save her. I can't say anything more because I don't want to give any spoilers away, but if you're a fan of any of Frida's books, then you guys already know what you kind of are expecting with this. I do think her Housemaid series was probably still the best ever, which makes sense. Most of us have read that. Now, the last book I'm including is actually a DNF book. I don't know if I'm supposed to put these books in these videos, but I figured why not? I attempted to read it, so it still counts as something that I read. But this book, I was so disappointed. This is Love in the Time of Serial Killers by Alicia Thompson, and I am so disappointed in this book. I thought this book would be more like Butcher and Blackbird or Lights Out, because it has serial killers in the title. I don't even know how to describe this book, but just, it's not dark romance. Let me just say that. We follow, what's her name? Phoebe, and she is into true crime. She overanalyzes this neighbor who walks over to her in the middle of the night while she's trying to take off this Victorian desk. I think it's a Victorian desk or something of the sort. A heavy furniture item off of her car. He freaks her out. She ends up overanalyzing him, and she's moving back into her dead parents' house until the house sells. It's a whole thing. It wasn't funny. I think I made it over 100 pages in, which is usually my mark, where I'm like, 100 pages, if I'm still not liking it, why waste the time? I'm so bummed though, because this is the cutest cover. This is one of those books where I fell victim to the cover, which I do. I do judge a book by its cover sometimes. I think we all do, but this book was just so cute for the cover, and look at the red and the pink for Valentine's Day. I was so bummed. I tried so hard to like it, but I told one person, they're like, yeah, idea enough that I couldn't do it. And I was like, that's it, I'm done too. I was like, I don't want to do it. All right, guys, that is going to be it for this video. Bones is back here on my lap. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I promise I will get better at these videos. For some reason, even though I read these not that long ago, sometimes my mind just goes absolutely blank. I don't know what it is. I could just be overthinking it. And I think that's where it's coming from. I'm overthinking it and I don't want to give anything away. So I'm like, how can I describe the book without giving away something that's going to be like, oh, well, I already knew that was coming. So I promise I will get better at these. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys like these videos, please let me know. These videos are very fun for me because there's honestly nothing more that I love talking about right now than books. Anytime somebody messages me on like Instagram, it becomes this whole conversation and I absolutely love it. All right, guys, that's going to be it. Leave your favorite book that you read in February in the comments down below. I will catch you guys next time. Bye.